So just quickly, Pecha Kucha, for anyone, if this is your first time, it's a Japanese term for chit-chat, started in Tokyo by a group of architects who wanted to have the occasional cocktail party.
The theme for tonight, as Danny and Eve said, is food for thought, and we have a delectable lineup of speakers who will lay out a feast of thoughts, will give us ideas to chew on, will serve up some humor, and will no doubt inspire our palate.
So Julia and I went on an unexpected and unusual journey last summer. We decided as musicians we wanted to tour across Canada, but not in your typical way. We wanted to bring something new to the music world.
We've been abandoned, and it was blackberries and broom and all the normal things that you find on Salt Spring. So that's kind of a foolish endeavor to take a farm that is in that kind of shape and try to build it into a dairy farm, but we didn't know any better, so we did it.
You've seen this one on the beer bottle, Salt Spring Pale Ale. That's his prize lettuce, which that particular variety was ordered from Slate and Stewart, the wholesalers of Victoria, 36 dozen for the royal visit in 1951 for the then Princess Elizabeth. So that's the royal. There's a nursing colleague of my sister's, about 1957, and they're sitting in the middle of the lettuce patch here, and there's some other vegetables. And so I had
counted how many animals we had. We worked out what it would cost to build an abattoir, and we came to the conclusion that we just didn't have enough animals to make a viable business. So nothing more was done at that point. And we waited to see what other abattoirs would do. Would they upgrade to the new standards? And some of them did, and some of them said they weren't going to, and then they changed their minds and they did it.
These are my black pumps. Every girl needs a pair of black pumps, and they go quite nice with the houndstooth pants, I think. I think that's the first time I wore them with my houndstooth pants. I bought those in New York. Most of my shoes, I know where I've bought them. Those shoes
that 9 billion people by 2030 requires more food, which requires more resources, which basically is what is ultimately, theoretically responsible for climate change. We know that oil reserves are diminishing and our demand is growing. But here's a picture that I think you need to take home with you, and that is food waste. 30% of what we produce right now is wasted, whether that be in the fields, in transport, en route, in storage, and yet we still have people starving in parts of the world. And we are going to have another 2 billion people to feed.
In which we plant trees together with the vegetables, which we have seen in our area has been a success. So we need to do this orchard in each village of these 14 villages so that we can sustain children. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is one of the orchards when it's just first been planted. So when you saw those buildings at the very beginning of the presentation, when we first met Mamelo 7 years ago, it was just a flat piece of ground. And you see sort of the bare fields, and you'll see in a moment what this community has done to transform the landscape on behalf of orphans and vulnerable children, using football teams and HIV support groups to actually provide the labor to produce food for the communities.
And like many places in the world, Australia has its share of poverty, and it's there in the desert. And this fellow's name is Joe P. He lives in Alice Springs. And he hires Aboriginal artists to paint these helmets. He takes them to bike rallies in Victoria, and he raises money. And he raises that money so he can introduce some Aboriginal kids to the wider world. And he basically
found the Pinot Noir and Chardonnay grapes, originally planted to make table wine, under-ripened sufficiently to make excellent sparkling wine. Salt Spring Island is on virtually the same latitude as the Champagne district of France. We can take our Pinot Noir and our Chardonnay, which are grown on our property, and make a nice sparkling wine from those, just in the same manner as in Champagne. We call the wine Karma.
We're now coming into October, and you can see apple harvest. It's an apple tree with 3 varieties on it. So I have my long-keeping apples, I have really sweet apples. The corn is just about done. I have a little greenhouse with peppers that are ripening, but these beds here are all full of food for the winter. This is my living refrigerator. Now these are crops that are going to be kept in the house and stored, squash and apples, onions. These are summer pears, but I love the Boston winter pears and a number of other varieties, and kiwis, because those fruit, you don't have to process them. You can keep those for months in refrigerators.
Someone who's invested in markets on Salt Spring Island. This is me with my hat. Some people call me the mayor of the Saturday market. I wasn't elected, so maybe the dictator would be a bit better. I imagine with this group of people here that we could go through the motions of what it's like to start a Saturday market. There's about 161 vendors that I can jam into the market every week. Ranges to about 20 farmers. 60.
It's good. It's good for you. Helps the local economy and so forth. But climate? Here you can see the impact of the food we eat on Salt Springs greenhouse gas emissions. The green part of the pie represents food, and it's about 40%.
Yes, and then the micro is the communities that we work with in South America. I just put up random slides from one of our projects in Paraguay. This is the indigenous Ashe Guayaqui community. And it's our pride project that we've been working with for the last 10 years, and I'll talk more about it in a minute. But essentially, the Ashe Guayaqui is a perfect metaphor for the kind of project that we want to work with as a business.
There are ones that we planted as well, and this is just another summer view of the farm. It's really beautiful, pastoral. This has been cleared for a long, 100+ years. This particular area has been farmed that you can see in this picture. This is me and my mom. I put this picture up here because she has always wanted to live in community. And when I was little, we always had teepees and yurts and buses and rundown school buses with random people living in them. And so it's been her vision, and this is us today. So this is our community.
These are a reminder of kind of where we have come from, and these are on for a long time. This is a farmer's lunch in Sicily, which was really quite wonderful. I mean, we stopped here to help load some hay, and about 8 hours later we were still sitting at their table. And I think they felt we were starving because we went away with a carload of wonderful homegrown, homemade things. But this is something that has disappeared now. And this is the blip. These are celery fields in the Oxnard Plain of southern